I've got a friend who wrote a really interesting post. Now, he's actually a very good friend of mine. This guy, Rosal Roja. Now, he wrote this really great thing about American self cannibalization and the crisis of liberalism. So, let me lay it down to you. He says, there's no real non liberal opposition in the US. There are very, very few real communists on the left, and very few real fascists on the right. Within the US, the alt-right serves as shock troopers of the Republicans, which are also liberals, and Antifa, which serves as the shock troops of the Democrats, which are also liberals. There's no real struggle within the United States aside from the struggle between competing trends which resulted from the implosion stemming from the 1991 crisis of liberalism. The new liberals and the traditionalist liberals whose traditionalism is ultimately bogus as fictional as the narrative of the new liberals, which is effectively a cultural war, and not any kind of class struggle or clash of civilizations. What is the crisis of liberalism? To simplify it as best, liberalism is an ideology that came into existence in conflict with the old world order of monarchism and feudalism. At the time, ideological liberalism was, as observed by Karl Marx, a progressive force alongside capitalism. Ideological liberal academics and liberal regimes such as the revolutionary France and the United States saw themselves as underdogs, as rebels, as in conflict with the great other, or great tyranny of the old world order, with the kind of systemic mission to overcome this tyranny and to bring about, quote-unquote, liberty. This opposition to a kind of great other would define the worldview of the liberal ideologues and regimes. In order to function, liberalism as an ideology must be in competition with some form of great tyranny. There are no longer any great tyrannies to oppose, no more liberty to impose. Once liberalism itself becomes the old power, liberalism loses its spiritual mandate to exist. Immediately following the collapse of feudalism within the Old World, the submission of all the other great monarchies to ideological liberalism, liberalism would come to replace its need for the great other with stand-ins from time to time. For a short time, this was fascism and Nazism. Following World War II, the great other status transitioned to communism. The opposition to communism, and later quote-unquote communism, would provide the spiritual mandate necessary for liberalism to function. Following the collapse of the USSR, liberals were quick to proclaim victory on the world stage. Francis Fukuyama famously proclaimed the end of history and Pax Americana. While the liberal ideologues and regimes were dizzy with success following their victory over communism, a silent crisis was forming. Absent a great other to see itself as in competition with, liberalism was faced with an internal existential crisis. For a short time, the War on Terror formed a unifying factor for the liberal regimes. The concept of terror, however, is extremely vague, so it would serve as a kind of band-aid solution. As a result of this, sometime in the last decade, the crisis of liberalism would cause a kind of implosion within their liberal ideology. First within the heartland of liberal and the Atlantic Empire, America, and later to the other core territories. This resulted in the creation of two split and opposing liberal deviants. The new liberals centered around the Democratic Party and other social liberal and formerly social democratic parties globally, and the traditionalists centered around Republicans, Tories, and the resurgent far right. Both trends attempted to paint themselves as the successors of liberalism in different ways. Both attempted to paint themselves as carrying on the traditions and the torch of liberalism, even if they sometimes distance themselves from past liberal moments. And to do so, both have invented a fictional worldview laced with a fictional, conspiracy theory-ridden narrative of the present. They both paint themselves as the rebels in opposition to grand, overarching, tyrannical conspiracy against liberty and freedom. In the name of this conspiracy, while similar in structure, varies on both wings. The traditionalists see themselves as opposed to the great conspiracy mindset by Islamists, communists, SJWs to destroy free speech, to repress and replace white people with third world immigrants, to destroy in Orwellian fashion all free speech, and to institute a nightmarish, politically correct communist dystopia. The new liberals see themselves as a great conspiracy minded by white Christian conservatives and fascists to legalize and promote hatred of minorities, to oppress or exterminate ethnic and sexual minorities, and to create a nightmarish totalitarian Nazi dystopia. Both wings are utterly convinced of their status as a rebellion against the Great Conspiracy, which, in their minds, is in near full control of the state apparatus, the media, private corporations, etc. Both see themselves as victims, and both have been whipped into equally delusional hysteria against the great other. The division is further stoked by large corporations who fuel the fire of this cultural war in order to make an easy profit. In opposing this great other, both are making moves, geopolitical and locally, which would both be seen as almost suicidal. The Atlantic Empire, and especially the United States, is in effect cannibalizing itself in its own self-imposed madness. Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.